What is up, you guys? I'm going to talk to you guys about a plugin called Bazzism. It's a Dutch company. I think it's Intelligent Sounds. I honestly don't remember, but it's if you Google Bazzism plugin, you should be able to find it. And this is kind of what it looks like right here, and it's such a great plugin. It's kind of old. The When I do these plugin talk series things, I like to kind of talk about plugins that have been around for a while and maybe some of the newer, younger producers don't know about. And just because it was ahead of their time, I can understand if people have been producing for like a year or two, then they might have missed the curve on some of these greater plugins like Morphix and Bassism and tons and tons of other ones. And, people use these kind of plugins as their like secret weapons and stuff. And especially for kicks, like kicks, make and break tracks. So, this is kind of what it looks like. I will kind of just load in one of my whoops, wrong one. I'm gonna just load in one of my presets here. And the great thing about so what this does, it's kind of like a sine wave generator, so pretty much an oscillator. And from there you can tweak the envelopes and set the ends and beginning transients and add a little distortion and all that stuff. So it's perfect for making like hardstyle kicks and those kind of things. If you wanted to get it more distorted, then you just follow that with something like a Camel Crusher or Homicide or pretty much any distortion plugin. But there's a little distortion parameter here too. So quickly, what each does, the F start is pretty much the beginning frequency transient. So for me, I like to set these kind of high, and I used to be a drummer for like 8 years. So what I've noticed also from playing drums and recording kick drums, like real actual drums, is at the beginning of every I guess what you would say kick, there's a slight higher pitch. That's from when the beater hits the kick drum. So that's usually around 5K. That's like a punchy area, and audio engineers always kind of EQ kicks around the 5K to add in more of that beginning punch. So it pretty much be just this. Let me just take out the end here. That's pretty much it. So that's in the 5K or 5K range, and right here that would be 5,000 hertz, because 5,000 hertz is 5K, and that's what that sounds like. And if I go higher, I have a very high punchy start. And so pretty much when you're using Bassism, I go in this order. I start from this side, go down, and then I go to this side and then down. Sometimes I'll start on the end first and then go over here, but usually going through each parameter in this order from top to bottom on the left side and then top to bottom on the right side usually gets me what I want. And so next thing is the sweep. So this pretty much is like the decay. So you could have really short kicks or really long kicks or really long kicks. This is kind of average length right here, actually. It's kind of quick, actually. So I'm going to go with something around there. And I'm going to ignore the V sweep for a sec, because what this kind of does is kind of blends this beginning frequency we selected with our end. And well, I'm not really too sure if it seems like it does that, but it also adds in its own kind of secondary little phase, oscillation phase through the whole thing. And you can see what you're kind of doing up here anyway. So I like that a lot, that you can visually see what this looks like. So I'll leave it in the middle for now. And then we have the polyphony, and that's pretty much, if you turn it off, it's pretty much only going to play one kick at a time, no matter how many notes you're playing on your keyboard. So they won't overlap. And if you turn it on, you can have overlapping MIDI notes. So they will trigger, and that's how that works. And another benefit of having something like this kind of little bass drum generator is that you can play your kicks in the key of your song, which it's great to know how to manipulate samples, but it's such a pain to get your kick samples, even good kick samples, to sound great and to overall fit in. Because even if you have a good kick sample, you still have to EQ it a bit and compress it a bit, and then you still have to tune it to the song. It's key. And then then I like to add on transient plugins to maybe shorten or lengthen the tail. So I mean, there's always gonna be a lot of processing on the kicks. And with this, it's kind of like I can just get a good other sample and layer this under that or over it, or just sometimes I've even used just this, and it's great. So now let me move on to distortion here. It's not the best distortion in the world, but it does add a little bit more character and color, so it's not that bad. They didn't have to put this in here, but they did. And let me make sure the noise is off here. So to me, what makes a good kick drum also is to have a nice sizzly white noise type of hi-hat above it. So you'll hear in a lot of tracks that there's usually a hi-hat and a kick drum playing at the same time, and it kind of sounds like this. But most people don't notice that, or most newer producers just don't do that. So layering kicks and hi-hats is a great way or noise is really a great way to make them sound even to make them cut through a mix much easier. But I'm gonna turn that off. We'll get to that last. And so now that I have kind of like the beginning of my kick, now I'm gonna work on the end. So now I'm gonna select anywhere from 90 hertz to 20. 20 is a little too low. 90 is kind of a little bit too high, but if I put it there, at least I know on most systems it will have a good bass or a better bass kind of recreation. So let me just kind of put it to where I like to have it, maybe anywhere from 50 to 70. I'm gonna go in the middle to 60. And I should have kind of had this dragged out a bit so I can hear it. So I'm going for like a longer dragged out tail. Sometimes it's better to kind of stay a little higher because that kind of sits better. And the lower you go, the more muddy it gets, and kind of the lower the sounds kind of die out anyway. And when you compress things, you always lose a little bit low end. So on the sub, try to keep it as high as possible without being too high. So maybe I'll leave it at 90. I'm going to go down 1 octave on my keyboard. So I guess I will leave it at 90 hertz, but 50 is usually a good place to leave it too. And let's see. Now we have the decay, so you kind of notice how I set how long this tail was. So this is like nothing right here. Can't even really hear it. Have a little bit there. It's enough there. And now it's just along there. And this obviously starts after the start. So this is the beginning transient that you see right here at the beginning. And then all this body at the end is all this stuff. So all that. And now I'm going to just set a decay, so as you can see how it's kind of fading it down a bit, so it's not so so it doesn't just stop harshly. Kind of like it right around there. And then you have decay types. Oh, and by the way, when you click on any of these, you can set it to a MIDI learn, so you can pretty much assign these to a controller. That may be a little bit too much. I don't know why I'd want to control these individual parameters and automate them for any reason. I kind of like my kicks to be consistent. And then you have overall volume. And you have decay type, which is pretty much just kind of gives you some options on the decay tell. I just leave it right there. Then you have an envelope here, and pretty much you can just, you know, have it fade in or fade out, and maybe a few other things. Let me see. There you go. And by double clicking, you can make points. So, you know, you can make a bunch of these, and I don't know what you might come up with. So, that's pretty much a really cool envelope right there. And then, as I was saying earlier, let me just reset everything to kind of 0, so it looks like I'm there. Then you can add on noise. So you have a filter type for the noise, typical low pass, high pass, band pass. I like to have the high pass. And I will bring this volume up, maybe around there. And then you have a little bit of reso, so you can, you know, just like a reso that you would see in any filter or EQ. I like to leave it around halfway. And now let's, you can go anywhere from 10 hertz to 10K, so that's quite a bit of range there for the frequency that you choose to filter. Let's go for like a lower hi-hat sound. Low pass. Okay, so the low pass, interestingly enough, cuts things around, I'm guessing, before 300 or after 300 hertz. High pass maybe starts well, we'll see where that starts. And then you can set decay for that. So it's just, you know, everything you would want in a noise generator. We'll leave it there, kind of play around with the volume, mix it in a bit. Yeah, that's a bit loud. Too quiet, can't even notice. I think that's the perfect level where it, maybe a little louder actually. And so that's pretty much what I like to do with that. I just randomly came up with these settings, and usually I'll tack on a distortion if I'm going for like a hardstyle type of thing. So trying to find where I might have my Camel Crusher, which is a free plugin, and it's awesome for these kind of you know, if you're doing hardstyle. I don't do hardstyle, but making those distorted kicks is pretty easy with this plugin right here. So I usually like to kind of figure out where I place the distortion, then go for mix, you know, leave it halfway, just so I can still have enough of the original to keep that main characteristic that I just designed. Problem with the compressor, even though it sounds great, let me just bring this up all the way so we can hear that. The problem with the compressor is that you lose so much high-end, running it through this compressor. Obviously, compressors kill high-end, but this really distorts it so much so that it becomes really lasery on some things. So maybe I'll set it up all the way or take off fat mode. Leave tube right around there, really low. Maybe bring back fat mode. I kind of miss that distortion. So that's what it sounds like now. Lost a lot of high end, so maybe I'll add in another one of my favorite plugins for bass, which would be let's see, where is it? I already passed it. It's Max Bass, and Max Bass is so cool for basses. So I'm just gonna kind of demonstrate some of the presets. I'm not gonna go through this myself right now and fool around with that. I'm just gonna maybe let's kind of lower these down a bit. So my input's just clipping, alright. So to fix my input, so this is the bass that it adds back in, and this is what originally came in through the input. So now if and you have other options here, like you have ratio, and you have other harmonic things you can add, but I will kind of talk about Max Bass another time, just kind of trying to repair some of the low end that I lost. Let's see. Really just gained that distorted sound, so it's not very and obviously you can just layer in another kick if you still need to add things in. So this is kind of just a bunch of plugins I like to use if I'm gonna maybe use Bazzism or need to fix a sample. Max Bass is perfect for that. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition. I ended up showing you guys a few other things I use, so hopefully you guys like that too. If you guys like me doing this series and kind of how I process kicks or basses or synths or anything like that, or just want me to kind of talk about some plugins that are my little secret weapons and help me achieve certain things, then let me know. So thanks guys.